Hi, I'm Dr. Kenyon Williams at Minnesota State University, Moorhead. I'd like to give you today 3 tips to help you supercharge your audition for the Minnesota All-State this year on Mallets. Tip number 1, be sure to write in your stickings and be consistent about using the same stickings every time you practice. So many times I have students that come to an etude like this one, and the first day they'll practice, for example, the first measure with their right hand. And they'll get it down. The next day, though, they'll forget they started with their right and start with their left. Then they come to the third day of practice, and guess what the sum total of their practice was? 0. Because what your brain did was learn one way, then cancel it out with another way, so when it comes time to finally perform it and the pressure's on, your brain's gonna go right, left, right, left, right, left, and eventually the fumble's gonna happen. So make sure that you have a consistent sticking that you feel comfortable with. For me, for example, I begin that first excerpt, the first measure, with the right hand. So I can come right off that last little lick with my left hand down at the bottom, quickly, smoothly, and easily. And after practicing it several ways, both times, right hand, left hand, both ways, I finally decided my right hand was the best way to do it. Go through the entire etude like that. Anywhere that you aren't sure what sticking you would use. For example, in measure number 5, you have these wonderful, beautiful triplet arpeggios, and notice I'm going to play them nice and slow so you can see my sticking. Notice I have a double right at the end. If I don't do a double right at the end, I end up with this awkward reach, which is never going to work. So I'm going to have a double right at the end of that arpeggio every time. So my left hand there can quickly get down it. And when it comes to the next measure, same thing. Double right at the end. Sorry. So I can keep going with the etude that way. And I'm going to pencil that in so I remember to do it the same way every time. Tip number 2. Be very careful in your mallet selection.
At MSU Moorhead, we do more on campus. We do more in our classes. We do more for our community. What will you do?
This piece is a real challenge because it goes from being very articulate and to being very smooth. You have some clean passages you want to have very open and very obviously played. For example, at measure 26, where you have these eighth notes. You want to have a very clean sound. So if I use a mallet that's too soft, it makes it muddy. After a while, it almost starts to sound like a roll. However, I also have some parts in this where I want to have a very smooth sound, and there's no room for a mallet change. In the adagio, this happens in measure number 16, if I use too hard of a mallet, I may start with a wonderful clarity at the beginning, but here I'm going to really suffer for it, because now I sound more like a xylophone instead of a marimba. Now I can mitigate a little bit of that by perhaps playing on the end of the bars. If I have a mallet with this sort of pear shape like this, then I can go to the end and get a smoother sound, which gives me a little room to get the smoother sound I may be looking for. But then I immediately jump to that clank, and that's not the sound I want. So mallet choice is something you need to invest in. You need to invest in mallets. Just like reed players have to buy reeds, percussionists have to buy mallets. For this piece, I really lean towards trying several different varieties. I'm an innovative percussion artist, and I personally lean towards the IP300s. They have a nice clean sound at the beginning, so I can hear my 16th and 32nd notes and 6 tuplets clearly. But when it comes time for the roll, when I back off especially, I have a nice, smooth sound. So mallet choice is something you want to really consider when making your final choices working on this piece. Tip number 3, be very aware of the phrasing marked in the piece. For example, in the very first measure, we have a nice 6-tuplet run that goes clean up the keyboard. But notice it's marked as one long phrase. In other words, we want a sense of this that goes all the way up. It's not marked. We don't want the accents. We don't want to hear the separate beats. No, it should be one continuous that goes all the way up to the passage. Now, this is nowhere more apparent perhaps than at the very end of the piece. When we go to measure 33 and the 3/4 bar right there, if I play slowly so you can hear it, what you don't have is this. It's not marked as just even 16ths. In other words, we shouldn't sound like, but rather there should be a sense of phrasing, a little bit of a slight weight, maybe a little tenuto on the downbeat of each phrase to give that illusion of a slur. In other words, I can hear that little be-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. And notice one trick that you can use is as you have a slur, make it slightly softer. So the first beat of the phrase is a lot stronger, and as it slurs, it gets a little softer. This gives the illusion that I'm slurring the notes together. If I crescendo, they sound more staccato and more separated. So if I go a little faster now, you can hear the three separate phrases as three separate beats, rather than the incorrect performance of with those just all equal sounds, not what the judges are going to be listening for. I'm going to give you a fourth bonus tip right now, and that is simply when you go to the Adagio section, make sure you're doing those rolls as evenly as you possibly can. A lot of students roll fast, and fast doesn't mean even. Fast just means fast. Will never sound as good as slow and even. Remember, roll speeds are not just about connecting the sounds, they're also about creating an atmosphere, a feeling. A fast roll indicates tension. A slow roll indicates relaxation. So, if I start fast in the Adagio, I can slow my roll to give the illusion of relaxation. And then if I want to get more tense, I can roll faster. However, whatever I do, I always need to roll even.